So I'm going to start with kind of my backstory. I'll keep it short and sweet, I promise. But for me, like I grew up in Southern California. I did not grow up playing water polo. I actually grew up playing baseball. We were a super big baseball family. Played select ball, that good stuff back when select wasn't like it is today where you just, get frustrated and buy your own team. But when we left California, when I was 13, we moved here to Texas. And I decided to quit baseball. I was frustrated. My parents had moved us. I'm pretty sure there's like some underlying daddy issues in there that I needed to take care of at some point. But that's a different call. But I started swimming instead of baseball. I dropped baseball altogether. Ended up at Marcus High School. Graduated from Marcus in '99. I swam there. As soon as I could, I left Texas. I hated Texas. Went back to California. Actually ended up at Fullerton College out there. Still had never played water polo. Went out there to go kind of start my business degree. Ended up swimming, and they were in a position where, they were looking to recruit people. I was a fast swimmer. I played high sport, but finding water polo out. For me, it was just nice to stop all the time. I'm sure most of us kind of felt that. Kind of made the transition from swim to polo. I finished my career at FJC, transferred over to Cal State Fullerton, played a little bit of masters afterwards. Around that time, got married, had kids, and California just got way too expensive for us. So we ended up moving back here to Texas. My oldest son did the whole baseball thing, which have kids or no kids that are 5 and 6 years old. Baseball at that age is awful to watch. So we were not bummed when he transitioned out of baseball, decided he wanted to go play basketball. He played basketball for a couple years. His team split up, went to go play select in different areas. He was not that type of athlete as far as basketball went. So we were like, hey, bud, what do you want to do? And he's like, I'm good. If I can't play with those guys, I don't really want to play basketball anymore. We're like, all right, cool. Let us know when you want to do something else. So probably a year and a half or so later, he was 11. And he was like, hey, Dad, you and Mom played water polo in college, right? And we were like, yes. We didn't really point our kids in any direction, but when the question came out, we were pretty stoked on it. So, literally just went online, talked to a couple people, found Thunder. I got a phone call from Joe. He was like, yeah, come on out, bring him out, try it out. So we did. So I initially started as just a parent. It didn't take long before Joe found out that I had some experience, and was really like, hey man, come out just one day a week. And I shut him down cold probably 5 or 6 times. And he kept with the one day a week. At that time, I'd actually left the corporate world. I was in corporate finance for about a dozen years. Hated my job, but loved what I was doing, if that makes sense. I was teaching. And so my thought was, hey, I love the teaching aspect of what I'm doing, but I hate the travel. I hate the finance industry. I want out of here. So went back to school to go get a master's. My idea was, hey, I'm going to roll this into a PhD. I'll go teach university. I don't want to have anything to do with high school kids. Like, I've been one of those. I know what they're like. No, thank you. And my wife that whole time was like, hey, what about, being a high school teacher? What about being a high school teacher? I was like, there's no way. So we end up at Champions Cup when it was hosted here in Louisville, actually at my current pool. And Cole had just started Thunder. We were going to watch, the older kids come play. And I ran into my old high school coach. And so just through, an easy conversation of, hey, how's it been? Yeah, our kids are going to end up going to Marcus. They're going to end up swimming for you because, we've kind of moved into the district. But with no hope or aspiration of coaching, of water polo, anything, my wife was actually the one that asked the question, hey, what's it look like for water polo at Marcus? And Coach Gillespie was like, hey, not really my thing. If I had somebody to coach it, maybe. And it was one of those where Amber was like, he'll do it. So I kind of got volunteered. In that aspect, I was already, kind of working into coaching, just from Joe asking and not letting me say no, which, 4 or 5 years later, I'm super thankful for, because I have a job that I love going to every single day. But anyways, the conversation continued between Coach Gillespie and I, about coaching water polo for Marcus. That next spring break, so Champions Cup is in the fall. That following spring break, we had kind of devised a plan. Again, Joe helped facilitate that. And I ended up meeting with the Booster Club first, was where I started. I went in, kind of presented to them, say, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I'm looking to do. Are you guys on board with this? They kind of cleared the way for that. And then I went in and met with the kids. And so at that time, this was spring of 2016. I walked in, Marcus was sitting at about 42 athletes, swimmers and divers combined. And I was able to recruit 19 of them. So I had 13 guys and 6 ladies that were interested in coming out and playing. We started after spring break. It was a super abbreviated season. Like I say, I had 6 ladies. We didn't even have enough to play until one of the girls talked one of their friends into coming and playing goalie. We ended up getting to go to regions that year. We got smoked. It was not good water polo. It was not good coaching. I was fresh into it, just kind of getting my feet underneath me. But we had a program now. We played for 5 or 6 weeks. The kids were pumped, and they were all like, okay, great. How do we do this again next year? And in talking with Coach Gillespie, we kind of devised a plan. And I was like, for me, I would tell them if they want to play next year, they've got to swim next year. Obviously, here in Texas, our swim season precedes the water polo season for now until 2021. But swimming was a requirement. And the way the kids hated it, by the way. But that's okay. Most of them, all they want to do is play water polo. They want to do it year round. We don't want to look at the black line. Totally get it. But we made it a requirement. And the way I explained it to them was, look, our season is short as far as the high school season goes. In order for us to be able to get into technical and tactical and the fun stuff, we've got to be already in shape. We've got to be conditioned, which is true. And they've kind of seen the fruit of that as the years have gone on. But man, that first year, they did not like it. So year 2, Coach Shannon Gillespie actually brought me on as her swim assistant. So I got to be there with the kids all year. That next year, we had a full-length season. We had suits. We looked like a real team. That year, the aquatics program, swimming and diving, actually grew from that original 42 to 65. And that second year, I had 22 boys and 14 ladies who were playing. So nearly doubled on the guys' side, definitely doubled the ladies' side, had a full roster. And that first full year actually saw the ladies go to state. And the gentlemen that year, I believe they finished 9th. So not too bad at regions. By year 3, the aquatics program had grown to 71. Again, I stayed on as the swim assistant, head water polo coach. That year we had 25 guys, 25 ladies. So yeah, we were at almost 50 kids playing, with, out of that total 71, had 2 full teams on both sides. Ladies qualified for state again. The JV ladies ended up winning JV champs, and the guys improved their spot the next year. They were 7th that following year. The year 4 last year, our program, the aquatics program at Marcus High School, grew to 82. So we've seen growth year after year after year. Again, had 2 teams on both sides, very successful. The boys finished just outside of making state. The ladies made it for the 3rd year in a row. Ladies JV champs again, like a lot of success in a short time, because the kids are excited and they're all in. They're really all in on water polo. And so this year I was actually named head coach for swim and water polo, which was awesome. Again, nothing that I had aspired to or hoped for or thought I was going to do. This year I had 87 total. And actually expanded to 5 teams. So we had 29 guys, 39 ladies. And yeah, went full varsity JV on the guys side, varsity JV, and then a frost off on the ladies side. And I would like to think that we were contenders on both sides for state this year. Obviously, things happened the way they did, but yeah, we've seen a lot of success, a lot of growth in a short time, and it's the growth is sustained kind of on both sides. It's obviously more than doubled the swim program over the course of 4 or 5 years. The water polo side of things has exploded, and that kind of looking forward to next year, it looks like there's going to be even more growth. So we've already kind of gotten numbers from our counselors, and I'm going to be north of 90 this year in aquatics between swim and dive, which is kind of unheard of for Marcus. Even when I was there, we ran 40 to 45. So it's been pretty cool to see that growth. It's been an amazing opportunity for me, again, just to have a job that I love to go to every day, and I think the kids enjoy it. And right now, with the way that the swim season is set up, they kind of have, they know swim season is going to be long. They know we're going to work hard for 6 months, but then they know at the end of the year, hey, we get to play polo. Obviously, that's going to shift here in a couple of years, but it's been kind of a beautiful growth to watch happen. So next thing I wanted to talk about these are what I feel are the 2 parts of success for any water polo program. Particularly high school. Number one is the coaches always have to keep in mind that the kids are number one. That is what this thing is about. It's not about the coach. It's not about the game. It's not about, personal glory and what trophies you can put, on your desk. It's certainly not financial gain. Anybody that's been coaching for more than 5 minutes knows, we're not in this thing for the money. But you've got to keep the kids first. A lot of these kids, especially the first ones that I was recruiting, they were swimmers. They'd never been a part of anything team other than maybe a relay, which, you can get booted off a relay. It's not a team to me. Yes, it is a competitive unit for a specified amount of time, but there's not that true team feel. So getting them, they're kids. They want to be a part of something. And this is a great thing for them to be a part of. And I think looking at it from the athlete perspective, you can take kids who say they've been cut from basketball, say they've been cut from volleyball, say they've been cut from, some other high school cut sport. They have now lost whatever it is that they were a part of. And if they have any athletic ability and they can swim, you've almost got yourself a water polo player there. Okay. Particularly like the basketball guys that already understand spacing. They understand movement. They understand playing both sides of the ball. So giving those kids a new place to belong and be a part of is huge. I had a couple kids. I had one who he did summer swim and he was the 5th pitcher for Marcus. The 5th pitcher for Marcus still has a rocket of an arm and never gets any time on the mound. He might get some trash time as a reliever in the 9th inning. But he was great. He was awesome. I had one of our divers. The kid was built like a brick and got cut from basketball. But again, just a cannon for an arm, already understood spacing, already understood offense and defense. Divers don't swim too well, but we worked on that, center defender, stay back, no big deal. So I think if you make it about the kids, one of the important parts of growth is parents. You've got to have parent support. You've got to have a booster club. And if your goal and like a true transparent goal, people can see that, man, this person really is doing this, not for themselves, but for someone else, the parents will get on board. I, as a parent, I've got 4 kids myself. If someone else is going to invest their time, their energy into something my kid loves and is constructive, what do you need? How can I help? And that's something that I've been very fortunate at Marcus. The parents have been so supportive, so on board. And it's been awesome. Because they see that it is an athlete focused approach, which I think that has to be primary for the coaches. The second thing I think is super important is for us as coaches to always look to improve. Okay, I think we need to hold ourselves to the same expectation we hold our athletes to. Athletes can always get better at positioning, at passing, at shooting. There's no amount of passes or shots they can take that's going to get them to you're never going to get any better. And I feel like it's the same way for us as coaches. Um, so I think it's big for us not to be afraid to make mistakes in that because you're going to. We all do. We're still making them. It's one of those, if you think you've got it all figured out, you need to go find something else to do because you don't, I promise. So for me, that has looked like just learning from the coaches around me. Obviously, Joe was the first one who taught me about coaching. I learned a lot of drills and skills from him on top of kind of the prior knowledge that I brought with me. That prior knowledge was a dozen years old. So, there were new things to learn. And I feel like that's a constant. Going to holiday camp for USA Water Polo, again, that's apart from high school, but being around coaches that are doing it at higher levels, always looking to find that next step, that next thing that you can move to. And by getting beat. I mean, that's been one of the biggest learning tools for me as an athlete. If somebody spun me and I didn't know where I was, I want to know how that guy just did that. And how do I not let it happen again? If I get beat by 20 goals because you're picking my defense apart, I want to know how you did that. What were you doing different? If I can't figure it out myself, I'm probably going to come ask you. So I think always being humble in that, being willing to improve, and asking questions. I mean, I'm blessed to have great coaches around me. I'm blessed to have opportunities to go and learn and see when ODP comes through town. That's a great opportunity. USA Water Polo sends out some of their best. And just even if somebody says something a little bit differently, that's helpful for me. Maybe there's a drill that I've taught 1,000 times, but this one kid doesn't get it the way I'm teaching it. I can be a better coach if I find another way to communicate it. And yeah, like I've picked up on coaches, just the way they communicate it is what makes it click for that athlete. So I think us bettering ourselves and always looking to kind of hold ourselves to that same standard that we hold our athletes to is the second piece of that. So, and last thing here, if I were looking to start a program in 2021, I would learn the rules, one, and there's a lot of them. And they're ever changing, it seems like, and high school doesn't jive with, FINA rules at this time and all that. But obviously you've got to know the rules so that you have an idea of what you're doing and how to guide your athletes in that. Next, I would probably learn just a basic offense and defense, know how to set up after a goal, little things that people don't necessarily think about. Know what front court offense looks like. If you're in high school, Scott did a really great job last week on counterattack. I'll be honest with you, high school is a lot of press and counter. Okay, so learn those basics. What's effective in high school? You don't have to have some super high level pick offense to be successful in starting a program in high school water polo. And then from a recruiting standpoint, again, start with the swimmers. That's where I started. And then, I'm in the classroom, I'm plugged in on campus. It's a little easier for me. But there was even a time where my oldest son stayed after school to retake a test. And I cruised by the school to go pick him up. And I see this girl standing outside and she's talking to a couple people that I recognize from swim or whatever. And she's like 6 feet tall. And I'm like, dude, who is that? And what does she do? Because I want to get her in the water. And yeah, it turned out she was like a friend of one of the girls who's already on the team. Talked to her, got her out. She had a little bit of soccer experience and stuff from back in the day. And yeah, she's turned out to be awesome. Like I'm literally always on the lookout for what are you doing with your free time? What sport are you playing? Because there's a lot. Again, if they can swim and they're halfway athletic, they can be an asset to your program. And then, yeah, finally in that, just kind of an encouragement for those who are starting a first-year high school program. That first kind of half year and even the second year, the full year, was met with a lot of, we have water polo at Marcus, and people not being aware. And that's okay. And now, I mean, there's 3,200 kids at our high school. Everybody knows we have a program. People know that it's successful. We're on the announcements. We're having send-offs when we qualify for state. And it's awesome. And that growth has been just over the last 4 or 5 years. So it's kind of something that if you manage well from the start, it'll explode. So I hope that's helpful. That's kind of what I've got. If anybody's got questions, I'm totally open.
All right, Brandon, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I got a compliment first and then a question that follows the compliment. So my compliment is that I've been fortunate to work in some very high-level programs with some great coaches and great kids. But without a doubt, Marcus kids, when it comes to character, work ethic, commitment, no matter what their experience level is, seems in my experience to be the absolute best. Like, I love Marcus kids to where I make a point to get one every year, as you know. So there's my compliment. So you're doing something great on a day-to-day basis, culture-wise. Can you maybe share a little bit, like some of the things you do to get these kids to be so passionate and how their work ethics be so great? Because I think that's a huge shining star of your program, not just in Texas, but when I compare your program to programs coast to coast.
First, thank you. Man, I would say that the biggest thing for me has just been to always be positive, even in the negative. When we take a loss, one of my stupid quotes that the kids love is that it's never a loss if we've learned something from it. And just trying to always point them to the bright side of things, if that makes sense. Because especially, like I said, in those first years, man, you're going to take beatdowns. It's just part of it. But always trying to find the bright side myself so that I can kind of reflect that back to them. Yes, swim season's long, but hey, guess what? You drop time in this. Oh, and P.S., we've only got this many days until water polo season starts. And they know that. They're keeping track. But it's kind of a combination of me staying positive myself, even when, everybody's got bad days. But again, it's about the kids. It's not about me. So when I walk on the pool deck, whatever is in my head or I'm bringing with me that day stops at the door, and it's about them. And making sure they've had an awesome day, they've had an awesome experience, and kind of, just pointing to the positive always. Does that answer that? Is that helpful?
Yeah, Brandon. This is Joe. You're also the best dress coach out there, by the way. So if anybody remembers, back in 2016, he came out in like the nice slacks and the tucked in shirt, which put all other coaches to shame. So kind of kudos there. But what about your first couple years there? How did you get balls, caps, goals or whatever for your program and such?
Okay. So the first year we actually borrowed from Thunder. We used, so the facility that I'm at is actually a shared pool. So my high school and 2 other high schools share it, and then Thunder actually works out there. So we had a beautiful benefit in that, just my working for both organizations. There was the opportunity there for me to use caps, balls, goals, all that stuff already existed. And Thunder was gracious enough to let us use it. Just knowing that it was going to be good for the sport. It was a growth, kind of a growth-minded allowance there by them to let us use their equipment. So, and it only took until the next year. Like I say, that the kids were so stoked, and the parents were stoked that the kids were, that it wasn't long before the parents were like, okay, what do we need to do to have suits? What do we need to do to have our own balls, our own caps? And, in that first full year, we set up a booster club. Man, we hosted a tournament so we could make some money and buy the things that the kids not necessarily need, but I think from a mental perspective, when everybody shows up in a different suit and a different, caps that don't have the M on it, I think there's a kind of a disconnect there. So it was important for them to, to show up in the same suit, to put that M on their head and just be proud and pumped in that. So Borrowing is great to get off the ground, and you have to, unless coach at a school where everybody's independently wealthy and just can't stop throwing money at you. You're gonna have to kind of beg, borrow, and steal to get it off the ground. But like I say, if it's focused on the kids and the parents are in, you'll find a way to make the rest happen.
So now, in that same vein, kind of coming up here to the fall of 2021, with the first UIL season, kind of if you were starting a program, kind of what would you kind of focus on as far as like kind of buying the necessities?
Necessities, I would say caps and balls balls first, because there's a lot of skill and drill work you can do. Even without a cage, you can set up chairs, you can make a goal out of whatever you'd like to make a goal out of. I would say balls first, then caps from a team perspective, some sort of uniform that says, hey, we are, this team, because again, it goes back to the kids and them feeling confident and stoked and just part of something. Like we don't look like a team if we're all wearing something different. And then cages are expensive. You go to tournaments and things, they're going to have cages there. So for me, I would say cages are probably the last thing I would buy.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, this is Pascal. How's it going?
Good.
So one of the challenges, and I don't coach Westwood anymore, but one of the challenges Westwood has is that, we're a big swim school, but the parents from the swim side don't really want to have anything to do with water polo. They're more focused on my son's going to go to the Olympics, and so there's really none of that booster support, I guess. We do have a few kids who are not swim team that are on water polo, but they're really not I would say gung-ho yet about it. They're just doing it because, like you said, you're looking for those athletes that maybe weren't successful elsewhere, but fit into water polo. So we don't really have a base of parents that are supporting the program. The first 2 years that I was helping out with it, I was basically acting as a booster club. I was donating money. I was doing scheduling, doing everything I could because there wasn't that support. Do you have any suggestions on how to build up that booster when you don't have the transition? I don't know what Marcus is like, but it sounds like maybe you have a lot of the swimmer parents who then kind of transition over to water polo and help out on the water polo side. I'm not getting that. I'm not seeing that at Westwood. Now that I'm not a coach anymore, I'll probably head up the booster club because it's going to stay involved. But again, I'm looking for ways to where we can get that built up, because I think you really need that support from the parents to do all those other things that the coach really shouldn't have to do, right? And so anyway, just that's my question.
Right on. Yeah. So like I said, I've been super fortunate that the parents were on board. But I also have, a mix, like I said, out of almost 90 athletes, only 70 of them are playing water polo. I say only, I love that. It's amazing. But there's kind of a clear definition, and we made it kind of from the beginning. That first year was me pitching to the swim booster just to get approval to do what I wanted to do. And then shortly thereafter, we actually separated this and had a true swim booster club and then a true water polo booster club. That were kind of separate entities. And so, like for me, I have 7 people on my swim booster club. I have 3 on my water polo booster club. So there's not a whole lot of parents that are contributing and participating in that. I run most of it myself. They're in charge of finances and decisions like that. But for the most part, there's still a lot of work on my side. But there is some support. So I would say don't try to have this giant booster club. If you can get 2 or 3 parents who are really in, they will help you. Even if you have to beg, borrow, scratch, and steal to get it done. I think it was 2 years ago, we were trying to get food donated for one of the tournaments we were hosting for hospitality and that. And getting people even to buy into that was difficult. So for us, what we did was we have an activity fee that covers tournament entries and suits. And we added to that activity fee and said, you know what, from now on, we'll, charge everybody else 15, 20 more dollars, and we won't ask for anything anymore. So I think simplifying and maybe having as few, looking at it from kind of a smaller perspective on the booster club might be helpful if you have those couple parents that are really in.
So a question to follow up with that is, what are people charging their players to play high school water polo?
We're not a UIL sport, but we follow the same guidelines. And so it's a UIL rule that you can't charge anybody to do anything if they're in your class. So what we do is an activity fee, just like swim. That first year we did $125, and that basically got them entries into the game and a t-shirt that said Marcus Water Polo on it. Over the last couple of years, I think we are at $225 now. But that includes, their suits. We enter, out of the 10 weeks. The only week we don't play is spring break. That first weekend of spring break. So that's getting them games every single weekend for the season. So yeah, if that's helpful.
Yeah. Anybody else have any idea on what they're charging? Because I'm just curious. One of the things we found again with Westwood is, and it seems like the kids are paying out of their own pocket or something, because they complain about $50. It's ridiculous. So I'm curious. Maybe David, I know he's in the same league as Westwood. He might have a perspective.
It was a little bit. It was, I think, probably about, I want to say about $120, $130 is what we had to charge. It was, I can tell you, it really helps to have some sort of relationship with a local club team in order to be able to, especially right now, while it's a club sport, to have a local club team that can provide some support and pool time, and really to register your kids through to get them registered into USA Water Polo, because for some of them they'll stay on and play all year. Some of them won't. But it's as a growing sport, you have to, slow attrition, right? So really you get kids and they're really, really excited at the end of the year, and they want to play all year round, and then state happens, and then they sort of sputter off. If they're members of USA Water Polo, it creates a good transition, and hopefully some of them stick around and continue, because in a place like Central Texas, like Round Rock, and it really does make a big difference if you have at least a couple of kids that play all year and learn some of the skills. The other thing that makes a difference on cost is if you're able to host an event. That really helps to defray the cost. So whatever you can do, if through the partnership or relationship with other organization or swim team, they'll allow you to use the pool. That was a big issue for us, and we just didn't have one. That we were, as strange as it sounds, we didn't have one we could use as the club. If they'll let you do it, then that can really help, and you can have creative parents that'll make chicken wings and things like that. I mean, that's kind of that's one of the advantages of water polo over a swim team meet, is that the kids aren't sitting there eating just green beans and drinking. It can be a little bit you have more opportunities there, but I would say that's the biggest thing to help defray costs. And I think that has to happen, because water polo is supposed to be a really inclusive kind of sport. It has it can appeal to a broader group of people regardless of your economic status, right? I mean, you get to play water polo in high school even if you didn't swim every day. for 10 years, twice a day. So the more that can be done to bring the cost down, the better. But that being able to host an event really helps. Sorry, thanks.
No,
Sorry, I got one last question, then I'll shut up. If anybody has a good example of a booster club, what do you call it? Like a documentation that you need to create your booster club. I don't know what that's called, bylaws or something. If they could share that with people, that would be great, because I'd like to start formulating that now for next year. And if I can have, a good starting point, just modify it slightly to fit Westwood, it's less work for me rather than trying to start from scratch. So if anybody has that, it'd be great to share.
This is Chris Cohen. I would also check with your school, because every school is going to have different formats for boosters. Some use an all sports booster club. Some might have limitations into a specific sport. So I would start with your school district in terms of what is allowed and what there is proper for your individual high school. So just a thought, because I know even within our own area, there's some school districts that have all sports, some have individual sports, some have, there's different restrictions by the state and by the school. So.
That's great. I'll check on that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone for all the questions, and Pascal, as far as the questions are kind of what people charge. I know schools that have charged $0, and I know schools that charge $350. So it's everything in between. It's kind of how long are you playing? Are you building your program? It kind of really depends on the circumstances, and it's a very good opportunity for next spring during our last club season for everybody to kind of get going and get those booster clubs set. So before the end of the school year next year, that everybody's set and going into the fall of 2021. Are there any other questions for Coach Brandon? Brandon, thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me.
And then I'd be remiss, but Coach Felix Mercado of Brown, who's on the call here, he did kind of put in the chat room that just to let everyone know, for starting next school year, the high school rules are going to be the USA water polo rules. Okay, so if people kind of didn't see the chat, as far as the NCAA, they are working on it right now, so it's to be determined for the NCAA rules. But the high school rules are going to be the new USA water polo rules kind of moving forward. So the 5 meters are only going to be penalty shots and a whole bunch of stuff going on outside of 6 meters. So that's going to be the best there. Any other questions, guys? All right, so there were a couple people that asked me about some goalie-specific stuff. We're already pretty long. I told everybody that we'd kind of keep this between 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm just going to go over. We are going to have a goalie-specific speaker and have a goalie-specific kind of coach to coaches here in May. But right now, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of share my screen real quick. And hopefully everybody can see that. Can y'all see it? Kind of give me a thumbs up if y'all can. I hope you can. All right. So if you go to the TX Water Polo website, you go to the education, and then you just kind of click on the education link. Then you scroll down kind of a little bit. We have a ton of kind of resources here. Please just kind of look through kind of everything. But I did do a goalie resources tab, and I kind of added to that over the last couple of days and last week. A ton of videos, a ton of presentations. Please go there and find some information on the goalie stuff. This is a rabbit hole that you can get down for a week or so. I mean, some things that are pretty good. The Betsy Armstrong presentation is great. The Jack Bowen presentation is great. Sean Nolan came and did the TISCA water polo or the TISCA kind of annual clinic a couple years ago. So we have a whole bunch of stuff down there. There's some great kind of water polo clinic kind of articles. The water polo goalie, there's a ton of kind of goalie trainings here at the site. Just a ton of goalie stuff. So please kind of go there, kind of utilize it, kind of learn at your pace. I just know as kind of whenever I was a coach kind of growing up, I was not a great goalie coach. I had to learn. I had to go ask people exactly what Coach Brandon was saying. I was unafraid to go ask people about how to train goalies, and I became a competent kind of goalie coach. The biggest thing is we just got to plan and allow our goalies to kind of to be successful. You can't just kind of put them off and go say, hey, just go over there and kind of do some legwork. But you also got to make sure that you get the best athletes possible out there. Like you don't put just the kid that can't swim in the goal. Like you need to put a good athlete, a smart athlete in the goal. So that's just some very goalie basics. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of see if anybody has any more questions kind of right now. And then we have Mark Lawrence next week, and he's going to be talking about balance and rhythm and movement in the water. And then we're going to have some other good coaches kind of down the line as well. Any other questions, guys?
No, but hey, this is Felix, and actually building on exactly what you said about goalies, it's kind of difficult to get just one way of doing the goalie stuff, because it's just goalies are all built so different, whether it's a girl goalie or a boy goalie, that I think that, just like Joe said, I think you guys have to kind of go in and take advantage of all those resources. And because I think everyone, I mean, I think it's important to have an idea of how you want to train your goalie. But as far as all goalies are going to do things a little bit differently, because physically and athletically they might be different. So but you do, just like Joe said, you have to give them an opportunity to practice and get better, and a little bit of direction. They need to be able to work by themselves, but also with some direction. So my 2 cents on the goalie stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just thanks, Felix. Any other questions, guys?
I just have one.
Yeah.
So the whole thing with the rule change, I'm at Fort Bend and we're looking at adding and going through. So it's put in that they will be going by USA. Like if we're looking at buying lane ropes that match USA, I know really it's just a cone here or there for setting up, but it's in there that they're going to be adapting USA water polo or NCAA.
That was voted on that was voted on back in April. So yes, the high school rules starting next school year are going to be basically the USA water polo rules. The only ones that they're not kind of implementing are the shot clock is not being reset to 20 seconds. And also there's going to be no flying subs. Felix, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the 2020, 2021, or that 2021 first year?
No, that is next school year, the 2021 school year. 2021 school year.
In the fall.
Starting this upcoming fall. If we have water polo. So.
When we have water polo.
There you go. I like that. That is
so
much
UIL is starting at this fall, not
no,
2021, 2022.
No, the UIL water polo starting the fall of 2021.
Okay.
Now the new high school rules are starting school year 2020, 2021.
Okay.
That's next year. So we will have one more year of club high school water polo in Texas in the spring of 2021, and then that'll take us right into the UIL season in the fall of 2021.
Okay.
Well, good, guys. I do appreciate it. Thanks for all the good questions. I do appreciate it. Again, so we'll be here the same time next week. Again, Mark Lawrence is from Austin Colleges is going to be on. I do appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, take care.
Thanks, Joe. Have a good day.